Good day, everyone, and welcome to our Return on Irrigation live event with Demeter Designs. I'm Mikey from Growlink, and I want to thank you all for registering and joining us. Today's discussion is going to be led by Sean Sullivan, owner, founder, and head of design at Demeter Designs, and Colton Breedlove, our VP of sales here at Growlink. We also have Marcus Baldinger, Growlink's senior cultivation advisor, that is going to be joining us during the Q&A section of the webinar. So a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing today. First, covering the common pitfalls and inefficiencies that we see when it comes to irrigation, followed by Demeter's design philosophy and going over some plan sets and processes, and how Growlink and Demeter work together, the benefits of Growlink systems and features, and what an ROI on proper irrigation design can look like. We're looking at about a 30-minute runtime here to go over these topics, and then we're going to be taking a look at a couple of real-world examples and implementation of full irrigation solutions. We're going to go ahead and get things started. I'm going to pass it off to Sean and Colton.
Thanks, Mikey. I'm Colton.
I'm Sean. Thanks for joining us today. This webinar is for owners, operators, and growers to understand how a properly designed irrigation system can help you become more profitable.
We're going to be covering how plumbing and irrigation design, along with proper controls, improves efficiency and yields. Very often we still see lighting, mechanical, benching coming first, and no thoughtful irrigation design, maybe no dedicated water room, kind of being an afterthought after some of the big ticket items, and rightfully so. But even after all of these years and a lot of advancements in automation, we oftentimes see a total lack of thoughtful irrigation layouts.
Yeah, the irrigation system is the lifeblood of the facility and should be treated as an important part of the design process and not an afterthought, right? Mostly people think, oh, maybe my plumber can just quickly install an irrigation system for me, and that's really not the case. We see these common pain points all the time in facilities, whether it's a new build out or an existing building. And I'm sure some of you can relate to what we're about to talk about. Going into a new project with no plan set for irrigation, no materials list, and no direction, right? I mean, you're just kind of relying on your plumber who is not an irrigation expert.
Or we've built facilities before, we'll just figure it out.
Right, yeah. Well, this worked here, maybe it'll work here, but you're scaling up tenfold, and it's just not the case, right? And then also going into it with no parts list and no direction there, you're going to overbuy or underbuy, and it's going to delay the project, and you're going to be wasting money on that build out in time spent and labor trying to figure out how to get this system together, right?
Another common mistake is just trying to maximize canopy square footage, right? And not having enough ample size to support, batch tanks or RO holding tanks or an irrigation system, or even just having the space to work within the facility. Right. If you've ever been in a facility that's tight in the hallways, it's what employee, what staff member really wants to be there? It just time and time again, even all these years later, kind of seeing that very consistently, whether it's a new build or retrofit, on not really having, put that at the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah, we love getting in at the ground floor with the MEP engineers, with the architects, and doing our preliminary layouts of the equipment that we actually need to put into the building to support the canopy square footage that the customer's after, and being able to shift at that point, rather than coming in the last inning and being okay, we got to shoehorn all this equipment in here, and we just don't have the space, and it becomes an uncomfortable working environment, or we just straight up don't have the space, and so tanks are being placed in the corridors where during harvest people are moving around this, or during harvest people are tripping over pipes and breaking equipment, right? It's get this in one centralized area and build it right and purposeful from the beginning.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Another thing is hand mixing batch tanks, right? In this day and age with the technology that we have, nobody should be hand mixing batch tanks. It makes you a slave to your garden, and you're relying on either yourself as an owner operator or an employee to go in there and hand mix those tanks every day. And if you're having a bad day and just kind of this is good enough, which we see, we see it, right? That directly relates to how your plants are responding. Right? If the pH isn't right, the EC's off, It's just not a good solution.
We still have multiple conversations every week with growers doing just that, right? Hand mixing batch tanks. They're dealing with too hot of a mix. The pH isn't balanced. And really, I think growers erring on the side of caution, right? Even if you're hitting your marks right, when you don't have a closed loop system that is designed intentionally for what you're trying to achieve, fits your cultivation strategy with how many irrigation zones that you have, how many different genetics and cultivars you're running through a production room.
Yep. And then how about hand watering in this day and age? Like paying somebody to go around and do a few second count on every single plant in the entire facility. It's a full-time job for at least one person, right? And it's insane to spend that much money on labor when most of that time hand watering, those nutrients are just going down the drain and they're expensive. And right now with the way the market's going, we need to be as efficient as possible, right? And pouring nutrients down the drain is not helping us with that.
We still see a lot of handheld substrate sensors as well, kind of spot checking, which is a very small sample size of data, right? If you're finding that in the P1 or the P2 stage, it's still not telling the full picture, and it's not giving you kind of a complete blueprint to how you can be successful.
Substrate data is we're looking at trends. We're not looking at spot checks in that given point in time. And who's to say if that sensor was placed the exact same way as it was the last time, with the same time of day it was placed the last time? I'm not really a fan of spot checking because it doesn't give you a good picture of what the plants are doing throughout a 24-hour period or longer, right?
Yep.
And we're driving irrigation events off of trends across time.
Yeah, and downstream from that, seeing even further inefficiencies on irrigation control. Whether that's disconnected systems, right? All the time we see people using multiple products or platforms or companies to manage irrigation, sometimes in separate rooms.
And all of that, it's all backs down to labor savings, right? Like having an employee walk the facility every single day, picking up those pots, doing those checks, going on one platform, reading your drybacks for the day, adjusting the irrigation programs on another platform to hopefully properly interpret that data and put it into the new platform, versus having one system that just does it all for you, and your employees are now saving that labor and putting that labor into more time in the garden tending to the plants, right? I think that's better time spent.
Talking about the disconnect between systems, one thing that I always enjoy when we work on projects together and introduce Demeter as a partner, whether it's a new build or a retrofit, is Sean and his team are thinking about things through a grower's lens, right? Whether that's working, within a small allocated space or we have unlimited space to work with, you're kind of creating something that you yourself would want to work within, right? It's like if I was in this grow managing it every day, how would I want things to run? And I think that really bodes well for client success down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as a cultivator myself, when I'm in here designing, I'm thinking about this is my facility, right? This is how I would want to run it every single day. When we're designing the fertigation room, we're looking at processes. Okay, we're going to bring in nutrients through this door here. We're going to be going to concentrate stock solution here, moving into fertigation, moving into batch as an even nice flow for the room, putting valves in places where they're easy to access, where maybe some designers just aren't thinking about that as an operator standpoint. Like, hey, we actually have to use this system, right? Yeah. Somebody has to get up to that valve above the tank that's 10 feet tall and turn it. No, that doesn't work. So treating it like it's my own gives the operator such a nice facility to run that they're going to want to be in. They're going to not be cursing every single day when they're in there, getting the fertigation room running, and also building that room efficiently so you're not spending a lot of time in that room. Having the right systems in place allows us to make a room that is so efficient that really all you need to be doing in there is making sure your stock solutions are full, and you kind of step away from the room once it's calibrated and ready to go.
Yep. So coming off of your philosophy, tell us what a typical design plan and the process behind that looks like.
Yeah, the process is pretty simple and straightforward. We work with you to figure out what your level of comfort is with technology, what level of automation you want to have in the building, what your budget is, and also what makes sense for the scale of the building, right? That's what works in a large scale facility is overkill for a smaller facility and vice versa, right?
Sure.
So that's something we definitely take into mind. We go through that design conversation in the beginning. It's a 1 to 2 hour phone call with the customer, and we talk about all the features and additions that they could ever want in the facility. Right? Like, hey, was there something in the past that you wish you had, or is a feature that you dreamt about that you wish you had? We'll come up with that new solution for you. Not every one of our plan sets is cookie cutter. As a matter of fact, no plans from us are cookie cutter.
Sure.
Every facility is designed one-off for the customer every single time to meet their needs and their requirements for their style of growing, right? And I think that's very important to make sure the cultivator gets what they're after. Obviously, we can help guide those conversations. If you're a new cultivator and you're building a new grow and you really don't have any direction, well, since we are growers, we can help you design a facility that makes sense, right? And it's something that's future-proof, and if things shift and change, we're ready for that.
Gives you a little bit of a room to grow, right? And
100%.
Scale over time.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And speaking of scaling, I mean, if we are doing phased construction, where a lot of people right now, they don't have the capital to go full scale right in the very beginning, right? We see that day in and day out. So we do phased construction documents. So phase 1 is here. This is where we stop the scope of the phase, and then we pick up here. We'll separate the parts list. We'll break apart the plans so your plumbers know, okay, we're going to start here for phase 1. And we pick up phase 2. We already know what we need to purchase and what that design looks like. And so we can easily move forward with it. Also, in that phased construction approach, I think it's very important the way that we design our phased construction. It does not interrupt phase 1 when we go into phase 2.
Sure. You can kind of continue operations and
100%.
Easily kind of almost copy paste into the next phase.
Yeah. And we don't ever have to take anything offline. Phase 1 just keeps running, and we plumb right into it and open a valve, and it continues down the way, right?
That's great.
No downtime. That's really important when we're operating at scale. What our plan sets look like, they're much, much different than anybody else's plans. I think we have the most detailed plan sets in the industry, and what that leads to is labor savings and cost savings on installation. Yeah. Right.
No mistakes, no missing items, no, hey, what am I supposed to do with this, ball valve or...
Right, and if you're hiring a plumber and say you're out of the country, right? So your plumbers, chances are they've never seen anything like this before. They have zero experience with any irrigation or fertigation plans or design. So we keep that in mind when we're designing these plans. So no matter where you are in the world, I say this to everybody, if you can read a tape measure and you can cut and glue pipe, you can install our systems. I think that's really important. So what that looks like, we have our floor plans and elevations, which are standard in every plan set. We provide process instrumentation diagrams, which there's simple line drawing. It shows the pipe diameters and the flow and where all the equipment call-outs are, what your wire tags are. So when we're talking with GrowLink, when your low voltage installers are wiring everything, it's the same on the plan sets as it is in the panel, right? That's important. And then we go into our assembly sheets. This is the bread and butter of what we do. And this is what makes it so anyone in the world could install our plans. So we take every single assembly from the RO holding tank all the way to the dripper on the table, and we break it into small chunks into these assemblies.
Easy to digest, almost kind of phasing the installation within the diagram.
Correct, yeah. It's your day 1, I'm starting here. Day 2, I'm going here. And it turns it into a Lego set or an IKEA set of plans that allow you to easily see what you need to do for the day. There's a floor plan and an elevation showing that assembly. There's a 3D exploded diagram of that assembly that shows you how to build it down to the cut length of every single section of pipe. The accurate cut length within a 1/16 of an inch of every piece of pipe.
And what's showing up on site is basically perfectly aligned with what's on the diagram.
Correct. And on that sheet, we have a 3D perspective view of what it should look like when it's completed. Before anything's ever built, we show you what it should look like when it's done. So we do that, again, RO holding tank, all the way to the dripper on the table. We also include a complete bill of materials. Every single part and piece, that you need to build out our system. So it's every elbow, T, valve, tank.
Kind of lay everything out and look at it before you even start on day 1.
Yeah, you know that when that equipment arrives, your installers have zero excuses, right? It's like, here's your Lego set of plans, here's your pallet of materials, it's all accounted for, get to work. Because when an installer doesn't think of all the materials that they need, which it's it's impossible to think of everything without a fully engineered plan set.
How many quick trips to the local hardware store,
Right.
plumbing store are you going to make to get that one thing that you forgot?
Hopefully they have it in stock.
Yeah.
And then productivity is lost. When you stop your workflow for the day as an installer and you go to the supply house and you're coming back, you got to get back in the groove again. So it's not just a quick trip to the store. You just lost an hour or two of productivity.
Maybe even a day or two.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if things are out of stock. So making sure that everything is there on day one when you start the build out is instrumental to making sure that we're saving money and we're being efficient in that process. Elaborating on all of that, we also do equipment procurement for our customers. So we sell all of our equipment at wholesale to the customer. Huge, right? When we're buying things from our plumbers, they're charging you retail
plus their markup.
Plus markup, right? So the money you're spending for the plans is almost immediately saved in the materials, not to mention the labor savings on top of that and making sure that the installation is going seamlessly.
Sure.
Right? We also offer installation support, installer recommendations, and on-site training and commissioning for the systems. So as a cultivator myself who uses the GrowLink platform and has for a few years, I know that system inside and out. When I get on site, I'm going to help start up that system, calibrate all your pumps, do all your valve validations, train you on all your SOPs, do all the pumper calibrations, build your recipes with you, build stock tank solutions. I mean, everything to get that water room up and running and moving water to the rooms.
Sure.
I'm going to help you start all that up. And then I'm going to train you on the platform as a grower, right? I'm like, okay, these are things and tools that I've used in my day-to-day operations that make my life easy, and all these fail-safes that I've brought into place to make sure that my garden is successful. So I can give that to you immediately.
I think that initial onboarding process is so important. I always tell people, we don't expect you to be experts on day one, right? This is an intuitive platform, something that's easy to use, but there's a learning curve. You got to find out what it means to you and to your facility.
Yeah, but I'll come in and I'll shave 6 months of learning curve right off in the first week that I'm there with you. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's a little bit about our process and how things work at Demeter Designs. Now that we've talked about my design process, let's talk about what the GrowLink Demeter process looks like in the background.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is we're so consistent and familiar with our approaches, right? I've got a pretty good feel for what your design philosophy is, right? Depending on the size of the project, what's our cultivation strategy, what's the size unit or the model unit kind of needed to make this all work in concert and harmony together. Ultimately, fewer meetings. That's what we find that this leads to the most, right? It is not uncommon to see Sean or myself kind of introduce a project to each other and, backdoor conversations happening where here's the size of the project, here's kind of the valve schedule, here's the sensor layout, here's the size unit we need, what flow rate and recipe they're going to be using. And right away we come forth to the customer, if not the first meeting with, hey, we've already got a solution in place. We want to make sure that this meets your needs, meets your budget, review it with you, and we're moving forward. A lot of times that's happening, if not the same day, within 24 hours. We talk about it a lot as a team of like the speed and efficiency required to be successful in this industry, not only as an operator, but as a vendor. I think that that's super important on being able to come forward, be confident, have the security and the redundancy that you need to be operationally efficient. But then very quickly, it's like, here's what we're doing. This all works together. And kind of going from there.
Yeah, I think between our process with the client, it's the first 2-hour meeting on what they're after, what kind of feature sets they want. We get to work, we build a 3D model, we have a 1-hour review, make sure the client likes it. From there, behind the scenes, client's already done. There's no more meetings with the client that they have to sit in weekly or bi-weekly.
Yeah, we want your opinion on this.
Right, yeah. Here's what we need from you. It's a couple hours, and then the customer can step away and concentrate on the rest of the build out. There's a lot of moving parts to this, so getting slimmer meetings is huge for everybody. Nobody likes being stuck in meetings all day.
And I think that's kind of the value play with working with both GrowLink and Demeter, right? You're getting a confident team that's worked on dozens of projects together, that has between us decades of experience that kind of comes forward with a solution that's kind of tailored to the project. So I think there's just a really nice handshake between Demeter's design philosophy, the performance of our system, and kind of totally closing the loop on having one platform, one kind of set of voices or support opinions to kind of work with that are meeting the needs of cultivation.
Absolutely.
The biggest advantage of using GrowLink is having nutrient delivery, climate control, lighting control, irrigation, all of your sensor monitoring on one platform. Nearly every retrofit project we've come across, especially in recent years, a lot of them are using a different vendor for nutrient delivery. They've got a separate company for climate control, maybe they've got a separate company for substrate monitoring, and then a different company for irrigation control. So now you've got 4 different apps or 4 different portals to log into, on top of adding to the list of people that you need to call should you need support. I think that omni-channel approach creates wild inefficiencies. I think bringing everything into one platform, everything working together, talking together, and also kind of having, like one neck to choke with all of this, right? We're here to help with any questions that you have on sensor performance or how to use your Copilot program, how to dial in things or create blueprints for climate control. I'm curious, tell us a little bit more about your kind of experience using GrowLink in your R&D space.
Yeah, so at the Demeter R&D facility, we have pretty much everything GrowLink has to offer. We have an NDK system with Anderson pumps. We're doing substrate monitoring with TerraLink sensors. We have lighting control, climate control, irrigation valve control, pretty much the entire platform. And coming off of what you said, I have been in this space where I had a different login for lighting, a different one for climate, a different one for irrigation control, a different one for substrate. I've had them all, and then having my fertigation disconnected from all of that. And it really took a lot of time out of my day to go through all those different logins, whereas now my day-to-day is so simple. It is wildly simple. I spend a lot of my day obviously running Demeter Designs. It's a very demanding business to run and make sure all of my clients are happy and successful, right? So
Sure.
In the R&D facility, we use this to test new products from you guys, different lighting strategies, different irrigation strategies, but we still want that facility to be successful, to yield, to be consistent, right? And we're learning how to make our customers' growing experience better by what we're doing in the R&D space, right?
You're actually using the product. You're able to kind of share your experience.
Correct.
Help guide your clients towards success based off
Yep.
your own knowledge.
Yeah, and so my day-to-day now, it's about 5 minutes I spend on the laptop making sure that my facility is running properly. Okay. We use blueprints, we use Copilot, we use all of these different platforms that are built in. And so really all I have to do is for 5 minutes a day, I log in on the web portal, I go to my preset dashboards that I've already built, I check out my climate, make sure that those have all been, everything's been trending for my VPD, my VPD, my RH, my temperature, my CO2, make sure all of that's been in check, my lighting's in check, and then I bump over to my other dashboard, look at my drybacks really quick, make sure all that looks good for me. I'm an irrigation nerd, so a lot of times I'm not using Copilot. I really want to tweak and manually adjust things on my own. Yep. So I'm looking at that sensor data from my TerraLinks and then making my decisions on what I want to do for the next day in the irrigation programs. But I'm traveling a lot also for work, right? Yeah. I don't have time to be a nerd all the time.
Yeah.
When I do, I love it.
It's kind of a luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
Like sometimes you want to get in there and just play around.
100%. But when I'm traveling abroad in Europe for a trade show or I'm at a commissioning, I don't have time to do that. So I'll turn on Copilot with my set parameters and let it run, and it works amazingly well, right? It just takes that away. And then the blueprints, I set my day-to-day parameters for the entire grow cycle in one blueprint, and then when I plant the room, I just hit go. And I know that my climate settings, my lighting settings, everything is changing and shifting how I want it to day to day, and I don't have to manage a calendar and make all those manual set point changes every single day. It takes that off my plate. So
you basically could pre-program your entire cultivation cycle, upload it to your controller, and have peace of mind while you're on the road.
Done. Yeah, and in 5 minutes a day, if that, I can rip through, make sure everything's operating properly, and then go about my real job, Demeter Designs, right? Sure. And for the cultivator, when we're running a multi-room facility, having blueprints in place, Copilot in place, takes so much labor off of the operator. Like it's it's crazy to me how much time you don't need to spend in there and how well the room actually runs. Our R&D facility, when I'm on the road traveling, sometimes I'm gone for a week, 2 weeks, and I can comfortably walk away from the facility for 2 weeks at a time, and I know that my grow is safe because I have sensors in place, alerts in place, that if anything happens, I immediately get a text message on my phone, my Apple Watch goes off, I get an email about it, red flags everywhere, something's wrong, I can log in real quick and make an adjustment or make a phone call to have somebody stop by and fix it. But I have that peace of mind where I can step away, right?
The stepping away part is something, my favorite content that we see online is people being able to enjoy going on vacation or a honeymoon. Or a lot of our customers, I'll see posts that are like, I haven't been in this room in 3 days. And they open the door and the plants look great.
Booming.
The canopy's in uniform. Everything looks fantastic. And they're like, no issues. And I think that's something that every grower, whether you're doing it as a hobby or all the way up to owning multiple facilities, that it's like you love the plant. You like the sport of being involved and kind of being hands-on with your garden, but being able to take that break and take, a day or two, a business trip, right, or, being able to do something.
We have wives and kids and lives that we need to attend to also, and not being a slave to a garden. Getting your life back and being able to step away if you want to is huge. Whether you're an owner-operator that wants to get their life back, or you're an owner and you have a cultivation staff and you just want to reduce labor, right? And make sure that everything is running properly every day without somebody putting their finger on the button, right? There's something to be said about that.
One thing you mentioned earlier was kind of manually managing irrigation events when you have the time, right? Because you enjoy it, you like being around on the platform. But when you're away, you're on the road commissioning a job, or you're at a trade show, taking that next step and using Copilot to kind of automate your irrigation events. And that's what I really like about the irrigation features within GrowLink, is it takes the guesswork out of it. You can come in, you can set your media type and size, your drip emitter size, what your steering method is. You can hit all of your schedule-based timers, and then you can kind of even filter in what your field capacity is, what your overnight dryback is, even what you want your target substrate EC to be. And what's nice is you even have choices beyond that on how much further you want to go. If you want to use Copilot, you can wake up every morning and review the suggestions from the day prior and choose whether or not you want to apply what it's recommending. You can even take the leap to autopilot. If you know you're going to be totally off the grid for 2 weeks and you want to just automate everything, like here's the program, here's what we're trying to achieve, just do it and execute on it. And I think, aside from the efficiencies, there's an educational component to that, right? With Copilot providing you, hey, here's a report card on what happened yesterday.
We're recommending this because we saw this, so we're going to make this
exactly
change.
But if you don't want to do that, great, but you're still learning. And as your plants are evolving, as that root mass grows, as different genetics and cultivars kind of take water and nutrients differently, therein lies the difference. And I think just kind of the daily impact that that's going to have over time. Again, we kind of mentioned about like the differences between spot checking and consistent data. Well, here we're getting consistent data, and we're taking that a really strong step forward by providing kind of an educational component, but you can still be behind the steering wheel. You can be the one who's driving that change. And then if, you get the outcomes that you're looking for. If we're really hitting the yields you're looking for, the quality is there, you can take that next step to autopilot, and you can kind of take your hands off the wheel and just let it do its thing.
Yeah, you can tiptoe into it. You don't have to go full bore into autopilot. You can really test the system and see how it's going to react with Copilot and say, yes, I like that change, apply it. And then once you get through a cycle and you're like, yeah, it actually does know what it's talking about, you can click that autopilot button and then just really step away from it for a while. Obviously, you still have all those alerts and sensor triggers in place in case something goes awry. You're going to be notified of it, right?
Sure.
It's not completely hands off, my head's in the clouds. Yeah. You can.
It's the wrong industry for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's giving you the time back to do the things that you otherwise wouldn't be doing. Hand mixing batch tanks, spot checking plants, measuring runoff consistently. It's like how many hours within a week-long period over the course of a cultivation cycle is that contributing to time that could be spent in the garden or doing other things that are going to help kind of get product off the shelf.
And what's time? Time is money.
Time is money.
And money is better spent on these systems where the return on investment is so quick.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the whole point of this webinar, is to really understand where our money is best spent. And that line item to get this process started and completed is recovered so quickly in the yield generation that we're going to have, the consistency we're going to have, the labor savings, all of those things all tie back into each other.
Yeah, we very consistently, obviously depending on the size of the project, take your average 5,000 square foot, of canopy, having a couple production rooms and, hand mixing batch tanks, not having complete closed loop irrigation with substrate sensor data. Oftentimes our system pays for itself in the first 6 months, if not that first cultivation cycle, right?
Absolutely.
We're improving the efficiencies on water and nutrient usage. We're probably replacing an employee or two by being able to automate nutrient delivery systems and not hand feed batch tanks. On top of just consistent quality. There's a lot of growers out there that are facing challenges with getting product off the shelf. The market's evolving, where there's always a constant chase for something new. But also we need to make sure that we're hitting our marks. What's selling? What kind of quality, genetics, and numbers are you looking for? And I think having all of this to where you can truly focus on that aspect of your business is really what's going to kind of enact the change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't we take a look at a couple different facility examples to show the different sizes and scales of the projects that we often support and the solutions behind them.
Sure. This first one we're looking at here is roughly 65,000 square feet. It is Biogenetics in Johannesburg, South Africa. It is a EU GMP and GACP certified facility. They're running a GrowLink NDS system there, Grundfos pumps, Moliere dissolved oxygen system, NetFM irrigation equipment, beautifully laid out facility, super clean, and GrowLink had a large part in this as well. Why don't you tell me about that?
Yeah, so starting with the water room, we have the GrowLink NDS, the nutrient delivery system. What's different about the NDS versus the NDK? This is a custom built solution. We can customize the amount of injectors, the size of the manifold, and then it comes on a pre-assembled frame, kind of a stainless steel frame. So it's kind of a drop-in, ready to be installed unit. Higher flow rate volumes, typically a larger blend tank. It's kind of meant to support a larger cultivation footprint. Outside of that, we've got our custom core control panels in place in the hallways just to manage climate, lighting, and irrigation. These are UL and CE certified panels. Again, a custom built solution that's kind of meant to be intended for its project. So depending on the scope of control, the amount of devices that we're controlling, where their panels need to be located, all of that kind of contributes to how many panels we have and kind of closes the loop on climate, irrigation, and nutrient delivery.
Yeah, these guys really went all out here with all the bells and whistles that GrowLink and Demeter both have to offer. Super clean build. We're really excited to see this facility come online this year.
All right, well, let's take a look at a smaller craft cannabis project that we both worked on earlier this summer, Nixon Cannabis. Now for Nixon, we use the nutrient delivery kit, or the NDK, which is a self-assembled and self-install, kind of pared down version of the NDS. Still gives you all of the access to the same features, but a little bit more of an economically priced solution for maybe a little bit more of a smaller project than what we saw with Biogenetics. And we're fortunate enough to have some facility walkthrough footage of you going through Nixon Cannabis, kind of telling us more about what went into the implementation and the design, even the installation of all of this. Take it away.
We're here at Nixon Cannabis in Illinois, a craft producer, about 5,000 square feet of flowering canopy. They came to us looking for a cost-effective, simple solution for fertigation and irrigation while remaining budget conscious, while also getting a bunch of data back so that they can log and remotely monitor, as well as have full control over the facility. We have our air compressor here to run our Anderson skid operated by the GrowLink NDK system, a new stream filtration with anti-scalant, and a triple ozone system for ozone generation in the water, keeps everything moving, keeps everything sterile. Working our way over here, redundant Grundfos pumps for our pressure boosting off of the RO tank. Of course, the GrowLink NDK skid, a very cost-effective solution for craft producers all over the world. H.E. Anderson pumpers come with that. Concentrate stock solution is in 55-gallon drums, mixing Athena Pro line here with a couple little additives that they wanted to add in. Of course, every system's custom tailored, so you can put whatever you want together, and we're happy to design that for you guys. That comes across on the output side of the skid. We have an Imperium valve bridge here that moves over to our batch tanks. The batch tanks have automated recirculation on them as well as automated RO fills. If anything were to go down potentially, we have backup storage here. We went with 325 gallon batch tanks here, just in case something, God forbid, happens, we have redundancy. So these guys can automatically go in here, fill them with RO, turn on the recirculation for these, and then manually add their nutrients if something happened on the back end, right? Keeps them moving. In normal operation, we're probably gonna run these about 50% capacity so that we're getting drain downs and refills more often throughout the day. Again, this is only about 5,000 square feet of flowering canopy, so we didn't wanna go too crazy here. We wanna make the nutrients, use the nutrients, keep things moving and fresh. Coming down, we have Grundfos boosting pumps here as well. All of these are room tanks for this facility. They opted to do a tank per room for maximum flexibility. The NDK can make an endless amount of recipes. So depending on how they're feeling, if they want to do some R&D in a room, if they want to change the EC values pretty often, they're not locked into recipe tanks here. Since it is a craft site, there aren't that many flower rooms, so we didn't need to go crazy. It's only 5 tanks, and then they have the most flexibility possible. This is a very budget-friendly build. They opted to go with Schedule 40 piping in the room here. This is a low light environment, so we don't have to worry about algae and biofilm buildup from the light penetration into the pipes. But of course, when we get down through the corridors and into the cultivation rooms, we go to Schedule 80 piping. High light environments always need to be in Schedule 80 so we don't get that algae and buildup in the pipes. Let's take a look down at one of the rooms. Of course, we're still under construction. We got a couple more months here, or maybe about a month left, but we're out on site right now just finishing up the commissioning. Room lines come up and overhead here, as well as we have RO going to every one of the rooms on a hose bib. Come on in here. You can see right there up top, we are transitioning from the Schedule 40 to the Schedule 80 piping in the room. We have our RO line on the left, our fertilizer line here on the right. That comes through to a filter. We have a hose bib for on-demand feeding as well in case they want to hand water, do anything like that, do a spot check or a spot feed. We have the option to do that on demand here. That comes up overhead, and we have every row. There's going to be 4 long benches in this room for veg. Every one is individualized with its own zone, and then it heads down, and we have a nursery in that back room over there with 5 more zones in there. That's going to handle all of our moms and some overflow veg, and then there's a purge on the end of that line here. All of our valve control and substrate monitoring in this facility is monitored by GrowLink as well. Every valve, again, is its own zone. Coming back to the PIC controller over here, never mind the wiring. Obviously, we're still in construction here. We don't have benches or zone drops installed yet, but we're working on it. Give us a month, we'll be operational. Substrate sensors and valve control coming from here. We can do co-pilot, autopilot, manual irrigation events, any kind of scheduling we want, ultimate flexibility. We can have sensor triggers, automating all of our feeds. We can have safeties built in place. It's really important that we tie our substrate sensing to our valve control for ultimate comfort and reliability here. We don't have to worry about any mishaps with anything drying back too far. So that's why we choose to use GrowLink substrate monitoring, because it ties back to our fertigation, it ties back to our irrigation. The whole system is one holistic environment talking to itself. All right, that wraps it up here at Nixon Cannabis. Of course, this whole facility, in terms of irrigation and fertigation, was designed by Demeter Designs. We also supplied all of the equipment you see in this room and in the cultivation rooms. We handle everything in terms of your install support, your procurement, your design, all the engineering on everything. We can do this for any facility anywhere in the world, very cost effective. It helped out the installers quite a bit having our design plans, and they got this done for a very affordable price. Pretty much everything's taken care of in the design. We tell you how long to cut the pipe and all of the parts and pieces that you need. Saves a ton of money on the labor. They knocked out this project in less than a week, I think, to get this room done, and then another week to do all the cultivation room. So lightning fast installation. Team did a great job. Thanks for tagging along with us. Hope you enjoyed what you saw here today.
Thanks for joining us for this conversation. We hope today was valuable for you.
If you're interested in fertigation and irrigation design, reach out to Demeter Designs at demeterdesigns.ag.
And if you're interested in full facility controls for climate, lighting, irrigation, and nutrient delivery, please reach out to GrowLink at growlink.ag, and we look forward to seeing you soon.